Thank you everybody for coming for meeting number 2. If you didn't see the first one, I would recommend going back to watch the first meeting, but today there will be a couple of recap components. Also, I got a little carried away, I think, when I was making all of the slides. So there's 91. We're not going to get through all of those today. So definitely feel free to stop me. We're not like rushed to get through everything. I added a disclosure just to be on the safe side so that none of this is like financial information, just putting that there. And then this is just the agenda for today. So I would really love it if we could all, has everyone had a chance to look at the Constitution? I know like a decent number have signed it, but I would really like to just mark that it was ratified today. So if you could pull out your computer, and then you should all have the Linktree, but if you don't, it's just link and then tr.ee/CornellBitcoinClub. Well, let me go to the other. And then once you get there, if you haven't joined the Slack, please join the Slack because I want to try and move all the communication there, the GCal. And then if you go to resources, this is where you can see the Constitution. And also I can put all in the Slack again of how to sign the Constitution, but that would just be awesome if we could, like today by midnight, if everyone could go in and sign it. But I just want to make sure everyone at least can get here for right now. So everyone, I don't know, raise your hand if it's not working. Cool. The Linktree? Okay. Okay, so just type like link and then tr.ee/CornellBitcoinClub and it'll come up.
I'll pass.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Great. And then, okay, show of hands, I'm not gonna make you make a Twitter, but show of hands, who has Twitter versus who does not have Twitter. So like if you have Twitter, raise your hand. Okay, awesome. Decent number. So this is later in the slides, but I also have a form. If you don't have to put your handle in there, but it would be nice. Like totally respect if you want to remain anonymous, that's okay. But Twitter is where I get pretty much all my Bitcoin news. And so I would like to be able to include links to different tweets and put like Twitter spaces, or that, type of information in the Slack. So if you need help doing that, happy to help you, but it would be awesome if you all could have a Twitter. And it can be, again, anonymous, no one needs to know. Great. And then let's go back in the slides. Okay, so weekly news update. I put on different slides today. Did anyone see like the Tucker Carlson Putin interview? I think it had like 200 million views on Twitter. But basically in there, he kind of says like the US is killing the dollar with their own hands. And the reason I kind of pulled this out today is because we're going to talk a lot about Bitcoin as money. And I bolded this part about gold, and I have a reference later in the slides. But basically like in 2020, central banks bought around like 200 tons of gold, and now the number's up to 1,000. So you can see that different nation states are diversifying away from holding the dollar. Next, did anyone see maybe in like the Wall Street Journal in October, there was basically this article that came out that used a lot of incorrect data, and I linked it here as well, but then I think it was yesterday or sometime this week, the US Treasury Department basically came out and said, yes, what the Wall Street Journal, the data they used was actually incorrect data. So wanted to share that this update. This happened like a couple hours ago. Elizabeth Warren, who is very historically like anti-Bitcoin, she signed for a flag to be flown over the Capitol building in honor of Satoshi Nakamoto, who was the creator of Bitcoin today. And yeah, it's pretty funny. On the certificate, it says, for the 15th anniversary of Bitcoin, the first truly inclusive financial system that is providing new economic freedoms to populations previously ignored by both public and private institutions, Americans are forever grateful. Anyways, didn't see this one coming, so that's interesting. world. This is also, so two really good sources that I also look up for weekly news and where I've sourced a lot is the News Block by Natalie Brunell. I'll share that. And then this is new. The Human Rights Foundation started a financial freedom report. This is number 11. And so this is just like some world news, what happens. I might say it's wrong, in Azerbaijan. Sorry if I said that wrong. Basically, they had an election and it was not held fairly, as you can see. And then also in Kosovo, they put a ban on the Serbian currency, and there's a lot of history inside of that. But just good to know what else is happening around the world, and this report has a lot more. And then finally, I wanted to go over the different poll responses, just so you all can see what other people thought from last time. Money's a big one. We're going to talk about that today. You have a general sense of what major everyone's in, how much people know. Most people don't know that much, so please ask all questions. No question's a bad question. And then, yes, this was the topic areas that you all were interested in. So today, it's going to be about money. Technical aspects of Bitcoin, that will also come up. And so I'm working on putting together different panels and such for that, but so you know. And then, yeah, there was a lot of just kind of knowledge that people wanted to get out of the club. So hopefully we can do that. And also I wanted to say, we're building this club together. So whatever you all would like to see in the club, let us know, me, Vicky, Jennifer, everyone involved. I think some people wanted or were curious about leadership opportunities in the club. Basically, ask for whatever it is that you want. I'm open to that. But this is just, the first iteration of this. So we'll grow, but please share what you'd like to see. Okay, warm up. So if everyone could please take out your computer still, if you have it, there's a cool little exercise here. So there's two options. I think we will go through a little bit longer path of doing this because not everyone's in the Slack, so I can't just paste this. But I'm going to do this with everyone. Sorry if you don't have a Mac. This is, I realized, only for Mac. But can everyone just open, or is everyone good? Does everyone have your computer? Or not? Okay. So Finder. And then you go up top to go. Stop me if I'm going too fast. But you go, and then computer, and then click on Macintosh HD, and then it's system, and then library, and then let me see. Okay. Then you go to image capture, devices. I think it's virtual scanner. Wait, sorry. Devices. Yeah, so you control click show package contents, and then resources. And then is everyone here at this point, or did I do that too quickly? Probably too quickly. What point is everyone at? Okay, we'll go back. Or how about everyone just tell me when you're here? Here's the instructions, and I can help you if not.
What's up?
So image capture, and then devices folder. And then when you get to the virtual scanner, control click, and it's show package contents. And yeah. Oh, weird. Huh. Oh.
I know what you're trying to do.
Yeah. I don't know. I still have it. So, okay. Can anyone? Oh, yeah. Now I don't want to update.
Yeah, it was all
okay.
But I attest that it was there.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe did everyone in your update? Okay. I'll just basically ta-da, the white paper is hidden in your computer. So yeah, that was a long way, but that's pretty cool. I guess now it's not if you updated, and I did not. So yes, today all about Bitcoin and the origins. So let me go back to the slides. Okay. Fun fact, in the white paper, you see the word network mentioned 21 times, which I think is interesting. 21 is a big number in Bitcoin. And that'll really lead into other discussions that we have. So lesson number 2. Let's just go over, what did the white paper solve, some historical context and recap. I also want to put a caveat that this is kind of half of the problem on these first slides, and then we're really gonna work through the rest of it. And hopefully by the end, a lot of threads will connect. So bear with me if it seems like we're going in a lot of different areas. First things first, a lot of people say that it solved the Byzantine generals problem, which basically is you have these generals that, to win, they all have to attack at once, but they can't communicate directly to each other. And there's unreliable messengers. So basically, how do these 4 generals kind of work together to make sure they can all attack? Like if 3 of them attack and 1 doesn't, then they lose. So you need all 4. So this kind of introduces the idea of trust. When you can't really trust the other members in your network. So there's a lot on here, but that's the general gist. And in the Bitcoin white paper, they offered a solution to this problem. However, I think there's a more important problem that is also solved, which is the double spend problem, which we're going to talk about. This is all recap on what is blockchain. So I'm not going to go through this, but I wanted to share that I just put in some more slides you can reference later. Again, I think the easiest way, if you weren't here the first meeting, to think about blockchain is the New York Times example. So the New York Times since 1851 is kind of your longest running blockchain. It's decentralized, everyone can own it, immutable once it's printed, you're not changing it, ordered by date, append only, verifiable, everyone could own every copy, and then you can verify them amongst each other. However, I would like to have a club challenge where we refer to the Bitcoin blockchain as the Bitcoin time chain. And so we're going to go through all of this. And hopefully by the end of the slides today, and if we have to finish next time, it will make sense as to why. But this is a club challenge we can embark on. So that's much higher than I expected was like the deep dive Bitcoin rabbit holes from the poll. And so this is one of the 21 documents that I put in. It's called Bitcoin is Time. And it's pretty long. So I put in some screenshots here of what I think are some of the most important parts of it. But basically this is really going to hit home why time chain, not blockchain. So let's just start at the beginning. Money is a tool to keep track of who owes what to whom. And you can kind of divide it into 2 categories, something physical, like a token, and something like an informational list, like a ledger. So we're going to go through, and these have different properties. In the digital realm, where kind of Bitcoin exists, we're dealing with information. And so this is where this double spending is an inherent problem. Double spending, what that means, it's like, I don't know, let's say Vicky and I have a shared bank account, and let's say there's like $5 in it, and we both want to go to get a coffee. But what happens if we buy it at the same time? Like, how do you deal with that? You need time involved to be able to see who can spend. Physical tokens, though, it's like if Vicky and I have one $5 bill, well, only one of us can spend that $5 bill. So it doesn't have that same problem. Here, I think, like, I always kind of get something new whenever I read the white paper and over again. But in the middle of this, it says, we propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work. So we're going to talk about this, but keywords is the time element of this. So yes, we kind of just pointed out this a little bit, how physical token directly represents the state of things. The second one, a ledger, is more indirect. And you can go back and read this later, but this is a rough draft of the Bitcoin source code, and Satoshi Nakamoto, creator of Bitcoin, referred to the Bitcoin blockchain as a time chain. He didn't call it a blockchain. And here's just again, in this paper, we propose a solution to the double spending problem. You don't need to know the second image. This is just showing that there's, out of the references in the white paper, 3 are about timestamping. And then here, I think this is put really well. What Satoshi figured out is how to independently agree upon a history of events without central coordination. So again, we have the trust piece come in here. And then this second image will make more sense after a couple of different lessons, but what does timekeeping require? It requires causality, unpredictability, and coordination. And we're gonna talk about through this, like, what is proof of work? What is the difficulty adjustment? What is like the hash function that Bitcoin uses? But those all work in support of this effort of timekeeping. So I don't know, this might be a little biased, but if someone says to you, no, like it's blockchain, not Bitcoin. Well, if we want to think about it as our club challenge as time chain, you could say, yeah, but time chain, not blockchain. So it's up to you. Okay. I also thought it would be cool. I was showing this to some people last time afterwards, but like, what is happening in Bitcoin right now? So this is, you can see, so right now, or 12 minutes ago, the 830,637th block was just mined. And so maybe some of you know that it's an average of every 10 minutes a new block is mined. But you can see like these had a space of 2 minutes. So it's not every one is 10 minutes, it's an average. Again, keep in mind time. And you can go all the way back. So I can't remember how I did this, but I think if I do 0, okay, no, I might have done this wrong. But actually, let me see if I can get it. Okay, yeah, so you can go back and look at every single one. And then what's really cool, and we'll go into this more, like let's just pick a random block. You can see its timestamp again, the exact time. You can see all the transactions that were included in it. So again, like think of like the New York Times, you see like all the words, like it does not look the same, but just generally, you can find all the information. So I thought that just might be interesting to show, you know, what this is looking like. And then we will go back, but that's a pretty cool resource. There's a lot of information. Okay, yeah, this is just another graphic. There's a lot to Bitcoin, and this is where the network piece comes in. And again, you all don't need to spend this much time, just putting into perspective. These, I think, are some of the 4 how you could define Bitcoin. There's a lot. And I think it's unique to every person. You're going to have a different pull. Okay, so for the Apple users, if your iCloud is broken, what do you do? Like, this is a question. Sal?
You to Apple support customer service.
Yes.
Smiley freaking out and saying, oh my God, I need help.
Yes, that is what you would do. So yeah, the Genius Bar. You're probably not going to like your local weatherman just because there's iCloud, like there's a cloud in it to ask what to do. So, you know, I think names are arbitrary. Just because there's coin in the name doesn't mean Bitcoin is all about money. And just because there's coin doesn't mean you should look to economists to tell you what it is or how to think about it. So just some initial context. Okay. So again, from last time, we kind of went over all this, but here's just some more of what you could put in about defining them. Different attributes of Bitcoin. This is, I think, I like to include different types of sources. This was really well done. TipNZ is her handle on Twitter. But it's setting this, it's called reality. Like, what is our reality at this moment? So we're just going to take some minutes and watch this and then just talk about it. So if something sticks out to you, just remember it. Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought I had this. Hold on. Let me put this. Okay. Here we go.
When time is given becomes a talent and empowering us. When time and technology becomes a tool enhancing us. By nature, time is value to almost everything, yet everything has assigned its value to our money. Most value on time. This parallel is on reality by defining the laws of nature and extends to the belief that a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow. Time value of money for reality is gold life. Make it your own, we can't explore we power reality check goes straight to the people write the 1+1 or 1 equals to 2. And if I way something else to do, and I think that's our involvement, justify value and full action from consequence because I have all been required to make medicine up. The fallacy on the side, based on the fantasy, or reality, and that's the point of the magnetic Body energy methods that are money itself invented, and we force by confidence of creation ensure structural value for many generations.
Okay, did anyone catch the truth and timestamp piece? Maybe? Okay, well, I guess, was there something that stuck out for everyone? Just so you can share. Rafa, did you have something?
Yeah, so I would say the main point of the video is sort of showing the difference between like normal currencies and sort of how when you have the lowest value in time versus like when you price value in time, so showing like that difference.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Anyone else? Sal?
Adding, building on what she said, it's, you know, the time value of money, Bitcoin represents an opportunity that if you're able to see it, it just upends that concept, right?
Mhm.
And time value of money is time value of life.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, props to her.
Yeah.
It's a very good art.
Yeah, she's super cool. Okay, well, we'll keep moving. Yeah. Again, this is history, just some recap. So yes, I don't think I really shared last time, but the white paper was published on October 31st, 2008. I think it would be fun to do like a lesson on the numbers in Bitcoin, but something that will come up later in a different topic was the idea of the separation of money and state. And so is anyone familiar with the Protestant Reformation? Maybe. So that spurred the separation of church and state, and that was spurred by when Martin Luther tacked up the 95 Theses. And the date he did that was October 31st. And then the Protestant Reformation lasted for a span of 131 years. All Bitcoin will be mined over a span of 131 years. And there's two more dates I'll mention later on that kind of speak to this nature. So yes, we've hinted Bitcoin's more than money, but we're going to talk about money from now on for this lesson. So who's familiar with kind of the three goals of money? Medium of exchange, store of value, unit of account. Another way to look at it is this. Is anyone familiar with that, or is this for most people the first time? Yeah, you're okay, familiar, cool. So we are going to talk about Bitcoin from that lens. We're from each of these different lenses or in comparison as well. And then these are just different traits of money as well. And you can see how Bitcoin compares to gold and fiat, and we're going to touch on the gold standard as well through these. So, okay, as medium of exchange, this is just showing how our medium of exchanges are not really succeeding at the moment. So for instance, this is global currencies 10-year returns versus the dollar. So there's 180 global currencies. You can see they're all pretty much red, and then Bitcoin is up 21,369%. I should look at the date. I don't actually know when this date of the chart was made. I should look at that. But this is just also, Alex Gladstein is another really good resource in the space. And this is just showing people living under extreme time theft and inflation. So just some context of how our currencies are doing right now as a medium of exchange. Store of value. Okay, so I made notes so that I get all of the history of this correct. Has anyone heard of the gold standard? Some people, I see a decent amount of heads nodding. Okay, cool. So let's see. I think maybe, yeah, so we'll start. How about Executive Order 6102? Because this is like a very specific executive order. But okay, so here's where another date fact comes in. Anyone know Satoshi Nakamoto's birthday, supposedly? No. Okay, so it's April 5th, 1975, is what it's listed as. Executive Order 6102 was issued on April 5th, 1933. So what this executive order said, and it was for all US citizens, and it basically said you have kind of 1 month to turn in all of your gold. So I think the exchange was like 1 ounce of gold was, they'd give you like $20.67. And then May 5th, 1933 came along, and then it went up to $35 an ounce. We're going to talk about this later, but the difficulty adjustment in Bitcoin happens every 2016 blocks, which is kind of the reverse of 6102. So there's a lot of like cool little things in Bitcoin that core components of it that have a lot of historical significance, I think. And what was the impact of Executive Order 6102? Well, it increased the gold on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet by 69%. So it gave them a lot of gold. And then anyone know what this image is down here? That's Fort Knox, where supposedly all of the gold in the US is kept, although some people don't actually think there's any more gold there. And then let me see, the next, how about the Bretton Woods Agreement? Has anyone maybe heard of this? No? Okay, some. Okay, so this happened in July 1944 in New Hampshire, and 44 nations created a new international monetary system called the Bretton Woods system. Basically, a key takeaway is that all countries agreed to fix their currency to the US dollar at $35 an ounce. Up until like, I think the 1960s did a reasonably good job. We had the gold standard. Basically, people used dollars, but it was all backed by gold. We're going to talk about this later, but at this same summit, the IMF and the World Bank were also created. That will be a topic for another day. Okay, so we are on the gold standard. And then after the assassination of President Kennedy, the US government chose a path of a lot of social and military spending. And the Vietnam War was the first one that was waged almost entirely on credit. And so by 1971, the US debt grew really, really high. So there was only 11 billion in gold that backed the 24 billion in dollars. So it used to be like ideally like more 1-to-1, except for now we only had 11 billion in gold, 24 billion in dollars. So gold standard is starting to fall apart. In August 1971, the French president, so let me back up, during World War II, France and the UK sent their gold to the US for kind of safekeeping because their countries were kind of damaged by the war. So August 1971, the French president sent a battleship to New York City and was like, hey, you know, we want our gold back. We're good now. And the British also asked for 3 billion worth supposedly held at this place for withdrawal. But then in August 15th, 1971, President Nixon told the American people in a televised speech that the US would no longer redeem dollars for gold. And that, yeah, you know, France, you're not getting your gold back. And so this was the first time we were in a pure fiat standard. So fiat, kind of talked about this last time, that's money by backed trust in the issuer. So yes, that is really when gold. So some people, I think it's a little debated, like did the gold standard end in 1933 or 1971? But there is some context for you. And then Executive Order 6102 was repealed in 1975. Hence Satoshi Nakamoto's birthday, April 5th, 1975. Kind of you get both sides of that order in there. I was just a little like caveat in here with all of the Bitcoin ETFs. I kind of have a fear in that this could be another 6102 scenario where you have so much inflow of Bitcoin going into these ETFs, and then what's to stop like the government saying, okay, like, you know, you need its national security, you need to turn over the gold, the Bitcoin to us. And so that's why like point number 2, I think of last time, if you know nothing else, it's like, please take your Bitcoin off of exchanges and self-custody it, because then you are actually owning your Bitcoin and it cannot be taken from you. Okay, that was a lot there. We're going to move on to store of value. So I have a couple slides on this one. The one on the left, this is just showing like the 2023 asset class returns, and you'll see Bitcoin's at 63.3%. This is a tweet showing how much all these currencies have collapsed against the dollar. The dollar is the world reserve currency. And then the dollar has collapsed against Bitcoin by 67%. So you have like all of the decline against the dollar and then the dollar against Bitcoin. This is a recent podcast that came out, and I would recommend, even if you think you're not like super financy, I'm not. But this is a chart showing, okay, by my understanding, the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin. And the point here is pick any 4-year period of time. So a lot of people say, you know, Bitcoin, it's volatile. in the short term, if you look at a very, short time horizon, yes, but if you pick any 4-year period of time, like from the high to all-time low, any 4-year period, it doesn't matter. The highest compound annual growth rate annualized, so every year, is 178%. The lowest was 24%. And yes, Preston Pish made this point in the podcast, but he says, like, look, this is past performance, doesn't equal future performance, but good context for us to know. Okay, this is a very cool chart. It's the price of eggs in Bitcoin. So this is, has anyone used like the St. Louis Fed.org Fed site? Yeah, so they have been keeping track of this since January 2015. And so in US dollar terms, the price of eggs has gone up 19.4% from $2.11 to $2.50 or 52 cents. And it's down almost 100% in terms of Bitcoin. So this is just a very cool chart kind of getting at how Bitcoin stores your value and dollars do not. So yes, very kind of cool. Next is unit of account. Does anyone have any questions before I move into another topic on this? Good. Okay. I want to make sure I get all this right, so I'm just looking at my notes. But okay, so we had dollars, they were backed by golds, then we don't. So we need the dollars to have some base backing. So what do we do? And so this was in 1971. 2 years later, in 1973, the Arab petroleum exporters of OPEC decided to quadruple the price of world oil and embargo the U.S. due to the U.S.'s support of Israel during the Yom Kippur War. And then at the time, Nixon and his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, Henry Kissinger, they needed a solution to the inflation problem. And so they hatched an idea known as the petrodollar. And so basically, petrodollar meaning oil's kind of backing demand for the dollar. So that was 1973. 1974, Treasury Secretary Simon visited the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and proposed a partnership of sorts. It said the U.S. would buy oil from Saudi Arabia and in return provide military aid and equipment. And then when the Saudis received dollars, they would convert them into U.S. treasuries, thereby creating constant demand for dollars and treasuries. So another kind of caveat here too, when you think about what is like the world reserve currency, it's US treasuries that are really in the world reserve position. And then the dollars, it's like the currency piece of that. So basically we'll buy oil and give military equipment. And then when they receive the dollars, they will go buy US treasuries. And so by 1975, all Arab nations producing oil were selling their oil for dollars, and eventually the most of the world adopted this standard. And then, so in October 2000, so about 15 years later, Saddam Hussein announced that Iraq would sell oil in euros, not dollars. And then in March 2003, the US invaded Iraq and overthrew Saddam Hussein, and Iraq went back to selling oil in dollars. So this is kind of what's currently backing dollars, the petrodollar. So there's just some historical context for you there. Okay, world reserve currencies, we talked about this. There's 180 currencies, and in the past kind of 8 iterations, or I should say, throughout history, 152 fiat currencies have failed, the average lifespan being about 25 years. And then if you look at this, going back like Florentine florin, Venetian ducat, they average at about a lifetime of 100 years in the position of being a world reserve currency. It really depends the dates you choose, but I think the dollar's time could be up in around like 2044-ish, just if we're looking like historically average. Obviously, it's all speculation, but you know, what could be next? I think it makes sense that it's Bitcoin, but that's my own opinion. Okay, so there's a really great book. There's a lot of moving pieces with like different layers of money and all the pieces as they come together. So there's a really good book. It's called Layered Money by Nick Bhatia, and I would recommend reading that if this is something you're interested in. But I want to go back to the Genesis block, the first block of Bitcoin. There's a message in there, and the message says, and it's showing the kind of headline of the Times on January 3rd, 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. And then this quote here, the Fed is the world's only true source of liquidity, and without its support, the system couldn't stand on its own. So it's really just showing, lack of trust in the financial system and how fragile it is. And so there's a lot of really good like pyramid charts in this book, but this is showing like what it could look like if Bitcoin's just the top, like it's the soundest base layer. Okay, another video. This guy makes a lot of really great videos. There's like a funny part in the beginning of it to kind of get your attention, but then there's content.
So good. Ooh, ice cream, so good. Slay. Gang, 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 gang. Okay, now that I have your attention, the US dollar has lost 99% of its purchasing power since the establishment of the Federal Reserve in 1914. It took 200 years for the US to accrue its first $1 trillion of debt, but we've added another trillion in just the last 11 days. There is no limit to how many dollars the Federal Reserve and the US government will create out of thin air. Bitcoin is the only apolitical currency in the world with a finite supply. It's backed and secured by electricity and mathematics, not armchair economists and bureaucrats. It's gone from zero to becoming the 15th largest currency on earth, and it is not stopping there. It is our one chance at separating money from state. Thank you for the heart. Select.
Okay. There you go. So yes, this is just showing kind of the, I get this, decline in purchasing power. So when I pulled this out at first, this was this fall in October, but basically in the previous 2 weeks before October 15th, the US had added 500 billion in debt. For context, the US Department of Defense, they spend annually about 700 billion. So in 2 weeks, we basically printed like the entire Department of Defense's budget. Okay, sorry if you can't see this super clear, but this shows like how long it's taken to add all the different trillions of debt. So the first trillion of debt, it took 195 years. The 31st trillion, it took 6 months. This is just another one saying it took 215 years for total US debt to reach 7 trillion. And then since March 2020, this probably went to like 2022, added 7 trillion. So debt spiral, has anyone heard this term before? Yes, yeah, okay, so I think James Lavish is a really great source of all information on many topics in Bitcoin, but I put in here a thread on the debt spiral. I would recommend you read it, but for context, there's also like this Twitter account that says like what the national debt is each day. We're now at 34 trillion. And when he wrote this summer 2022, I think we were at 30. So it's really stacking up. And that's hence debt spiral. You're just spiraling further and further into debt. So that is kind of the 3 different areas. Quick pause. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, yeah.
Just be contraring, maybe the debt's like not that big of a deal. Cause like, it's all relative to like GDP. And like companies often hold debt.
Yeah.
But it's the pace.
I think we go back to, hold on. When countries' debt to GDP surpasses 200%, it's statistically reasonable to expect the currency to fail within 1 generation. Like, it is a problem.
I think we're at like 120% right now. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but okay. We don't need to go over this. This is just kind of my down the rabbit hole argument as to why Bitcoin is, I think, the best and first form of true property. But this is going to carry us into this topic. Intrinsic value is talked a lot about in Bitcoin, and people like to say, well, oh, it doesn't have any intrinsic value, and there's a lot of debates on it. So I'm just going to present some ideas to this. Also to say, what you really care about in your money is the purchasing power. Like, will my purchasing power like stay or grow over time? So we're just going to look at this from a couple different perspectives. From the beginning of time, like we have secured our property through a scarce resource, kinetic energy. This is just physics. So here's my point, like Bitcoin, I think is the first true form of property, finite, scarce in numbers, created and secured by energy. However, I'm going to bring up this later. Time, again, is really important because time is the ultimate scarcity. And we're going to talk about that, but just putting a note there. Oh yeah, this graphic, I forgot. This is just like a bucket, like with holes, like water leaking out value, Bitcoin, kind of your holes are plugged. Okay, another video.
Value, and that's why they don't touch it. But think about the most valuable thing in the room with you right now. Is it a painting, a computer, the phone you're watching this video on? No, it's oxygen. Nothing else could possibly be more valuable than the air keeping you alive second to second. But it's also abundant and free, which is why you don't really think about it. Similarly, if you were offered a Rolex or a bottle of water right now, you'd probably pick the Rolex. But if you were stranded in the middle of the Sahara Desert, you'd sure as hell pick the water. Point is, value is subjective to the individual. Bitcoin, along with all forms of money, derives subjective value from the soundness of its properties. Unlike every other type of money on Earth, all of these properties are secured in Bitcoin by the laws of mathematics, consensus, and engineering. So maybe the more important issue is, what exactly is securing the value of these? A lot of people say that Bitcoin.
So yeah, just some further context. Okay, going back. Okay, so we're going to go back to time now. So we're going to talk about, so proof of work, we haven't fully talked about this yet, but basically this is how, and there's a lot of caveats when you say this, this is how you can mine new Bitcoin, secure the network. But here, you can go back and read this later, but time is very critical as well, and we're going to expand on this. But let me just move along. This is how the time works. So it's an average of 10 minutes. Again, you can see 2016 blocks. That's the reversal of 6102. And you don't need to know exactly this, but this is the criteria it has to meet for the timestamp. So I just want to read out this piece here. In other words, the difficulty adjustment, oh, actually I should clarify this. So Bitcoin will be mined over a span of 131 years, needs to average about every 10 minutes, a new block being added. And in order to ensure that every 2016 blocks, there's a check and it's like, okay, is it too easy or is it too hard to do the proof of work? And so that is the difficulty adjustment. And so now that we have that, so the difficulty adjustment is about keeping a constant time, not a constant level of security, difficulty, or energy expenditure. This is ingenious because good money has to be costly in time, not energy. Linking money to energy alone is not sufficient to produce absolute scarcity, since every improvement in energy generation would allow us to create more money. Time is the only thing we will never be able to make more of. It is the ultimate resource. This makes Bitcoin the ultimate form of money because its issuance is directly linked to the ultimate resource of our universe, time. So I think this is another good argument as to why time chain, not blockchain. This is unique again to Bitcoin. Time is very critical. Okay, this is just another kind of interesting thought experiment on value, because some people will say, but oh, like Bitcoin's not good because it hasn't been updated in, sorry, this should say 15 years. Or yeah, but didn't its price drop from like 60,000 to 18,000? And, you could say like, well, does the molecular composition of gold change? Like, no, it doesn't. It always has those atomic properties. And we think that makes it more valuable that you know what you're going to have throughout time. Again, think of purchasing power. So that's kind of a rebuttal of, someone blockchain's like, oh, but it hasn't changed. No, because it's a solid foundation. Again, I brought this up last time, but Bitcoin as monetary protocol. We're going to talk about energy and more sides, but it's a feature, not a bug. People will say like, oh, but it's energy usage. It's like they treat it in a negative light. No, it's actually a good thing. So this is the global energy consumption. Bitcoin uses less than 1%, which is less than US Christmas lights. The traditional banking system uses 56 times more energy than Bitcoin. A note down here, we're going to talk about Lightning, but the Lightning network is 1,000 times cheaper than like normal payment networks commission costs like MasterCard, Visa. Okay, this is kind of getting us to the wrap up. Obviously we talked about different goals in the white paper, like the issue of trust, like the Byzantine generals problem-ish, issue of double spending, but there's some attributes in it that aren't specifically stated, but that should also not be overlooked and really are crucial in the idea of the time chain as well. So 21 million Bitcoin only, there can never be any more. It's all in the math, and he showed the equation, but we'll go over that again. And proof of work, we're going to talk about this, and the difficulty adjustment are really important as well. So let me just see. Yeah, so even though the title says like Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, it also is a lot more, which we will talk about. Yeah, another meme. And let's see, again, resources. I'm working on that, sorry. And so announcements, same thing, in case you weren't here last time, if you'd like to attend Bitcoin Nashville, there's a link here. And then Summer of Bitcoin, they have a 6,000 stipend, and then another internship that's still open, Riot, I think maybe there were 11, maybe there's like 7 or so now, but if you're still looking for an internship, that's a great opportunity. And then, yeah, we kind of went over this, but please join the Slack, GCal. Would love to get the Constitution ratified tonight, so if you could please sign that, that would be super. And yes, again, just you can add your resume to the resume book. Any topics you'd like to see. I'll also make sure to put back in here like the anonymous question form. Like, obviously, I hope we can cultivate an environment where everyone can just feel free to ask their questions. But if there's a question you don't want to ask, I still want to make sure it's answered, so you can fill out that. And that is pretty much it. So thank you, everybody.